This is a production of WGBH2 Boston, from the station that brings you local depth and local perspective. Now, veteran journalists on the hot seat after criticizing a cancer patient's tweets. Plus, a new book pulls the curtain back on Fox News chief Roger Ailes. And should a sports reporter be criticized for dating a Red Sox player she covers? From the WGBH News studios, this is Beat the Press.
Hello, welcome to Beat the Press on TV and streaming online. I'm Emily Rooney, and I'm joined by a panel of journalists here to weigh in on the biggest media stories of the week. First up, columnists get paid to offer provocative opinions that trigger an emotional response in readers. And that's presumably what Bill and Emma Keller were after when they each recently penned op-eds about a cancer patient. Turns out they triggered a far bigger response than they bargained for.
Living with stage 4 breast cancer and writing about it. That's how Lisa Boncheck-Adams describes her life on Twitter. She chronicles her life as a cancer patient with almost hourly tweets like these. Radiation number 9 done. The world at this moment seems a very lonely place to me. But that openness led Emma Gilby Keller to question Adams in this column in The Guardian. Should there be boundaries in this kind of experience, she asks. Are her tweets a grim equivalent of deathbed selfies? Then Emma Keller's husband, former New York Times editor Bill Keller, piled on with his own column in The Times, casting Adams as a cancer warrior who raises false hopes. The backlash was immediate and intense.
The New York Times bullying a woman who's a mother of 3 in her 40s, fighting cancer for the last 7 years.
I suspect that we'll find out sometime in the next year or two that Bill Keller is mentally ill.
The Guardian promptly removed Emma Keller's column, calling it inconsistent with the paper's editorial code. New York Times public editor Margaret Sullivan said Bill's column raised issues of tone and sensitivity. For her part, Lisa Boncheck-Adams says she's taking the high road, but not before she fired off this tart response. Do not write me off and make statements about how my life ends till it does, sir.
So did the Kellers cross the line? Joining me to hash it out are Marjorie Egan of the Boston Herald and WGBH News and Joshua Benton of the Neiman Journalism Lab, along with Callie Crossley of WGBH News and Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University. And there was even yet another layer to this. As it turned out, Emma Keller had asked Lisa Adams to live with them while she came to New York for some kind of cancer treatment. I mean, this falls into the category of what were you thinking, Marjorie? I mean, these are the kind of conversations you have at home, like, you know, somebody giving false hope, and you know, but she's 7 years, she's dying of cancer. I mean, you know,
well, this was bizarre on so many levels. If you just said Emma Keller had some kind of relationship with this woman, apparently wrote this whole story without telling her she was going to do it, said she was dying in the lead, which this woman it is not conceded that she is, and I don't know if she is. Many people go through excruciating, horrible treatments and survive for quite some time. Then, just days later, her husband writes this column criticizing how she's dealing with her cancer. I mean, it's almost like this is as someone just said in the setup piece, this is a relatively young woman in her 40s who discovered she had cancer at a postpartum doctor's appointment. She's got very small children. If she wants to tweet about it because it helps her deal with this, and if she wants to have 1,000 followers, it's as if the NPR writer that we read that wrote about this, I think, had a great, it was almost as if Bill Keller was treating this as if this woman had written a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list, and he was going to decide, critique it that way. This is, it seemed to me, from what I read, that she was doing this as a way to deal with her cancer.
It's so, I'm so tired of seeing people from the traditional media world decide that they can tell people who are not from that world what they're allowed to say and what is appropriate to say and what are the things that it's okay to say. We saw this, when blogging first came around. People, bloggers were derided as, people living in their mother's basement and with eating Cheetos, and how dare they have opinions about politics or have opinions about their lives or write what they had for lunch that day. The genius of blogging and Twitter and online media is that if you're not interested in it, you don't have to go read it. You can unfollow her. You probably shouldn't do that if you're inviting her to live with you. That's a whole other thing. But this had a really unseemly edge of big traditional old form media ganging up on someone who's doing what is making her feel better personally. There's nothing wrong with what she's doing.
You know, I think the basic problem with these columns, there are many problems with these columns, but one of them is the form of a newspaper column itself, and that is you have to have a take of some kind. And both Emma Keller and Bill Keller had a take that they wanted to promote, and they were going to squeeze Lisa Adams into that take so that she would fit, whether she really fit or not. So Emma Keller has this idea that she wants to write about people who are offering, you know, too much information in public during a time of great personal crisis, and she just wedged her into that. And by the way, she also quoted some private messages without permission. I mean, Lisa Adams has said she had no idea.
And by the way, on that point, Bill Keller's take was, you should die the way my father died.
Yes.
He was lecturing her. Well, my father died very anonymously without going to any extraordinary means. It's like, okay.
It was horrible, but the larger problem is this need to try to impose your reality on somebody else's reality.
Well, I think what you've all said is absolutely true, but I would say that what I think Emma Keller was trying to do was to talk about the whole question of how much we put out in public now. And because social media is the vehicle by which most people do that, that's what she wanted to do. I take your point about her squeezing this poor woman into it, but that was her larger point. She just messed it all up in the way that she did it. By the way, not paying attention to the etiquette of respecting somebody's privacy, if it's a direct message, asking permission, all the kind of stuff that you do if you are a journalist anyway. But I think there is a discussion about it, because let's remember when Scott Simon tweeted about his mom dying, and he made it clear, my mom is someone who would have wanted me to do this, is right here with me. I want to tell this story. People followed it, had different opinions about it, and we can still have different opinions about whether that was too much information. But I think that was her larger issue. I'm not giving her an excuse. I'm just saying.
There was also a lot of inaccuracy.
Absolutely.
Bill Keller couldn't even get the number of children.
I'm saying the journalistic stuff seemed to go out of the window.
But here's the weird thing, and by the way, her column was a million times better than her husband's, I thought, because she did have that stuff at the end about how should we react to this, am I being a voyeur to watch this? But the weird thing is, okay, she's written it, and then her husband writes a column a couple of days later.
Why did the Times go along with it? And why did the Guardian post it in the first place if they were going to take it down?
I don't know.
I think it's weird.
It piling on.
Yeah. If it had been framed as a first-person thought of, I'm not comfortable reading this, I don't want to see this because my father died a different way, then it might be okay. Yeah. But instead the framing was, it's not that I'm uncomfortable with this, it's that someone else shouldn't do this.
All right, here's this one we're unanimous on.